The war was over, yet the galaxy still carried the marks of fire and destruction. Entire star systems bore silent scars of broken fleets drifting in the dark, ruins of ships that once burned with pride. Among these remains, a single massive figure floated in the cold emptiness of space. Its body was like a living fortress of scales, wings folded tightly to its sides. This was Ralok, a veteran alien war dragon, once feared across worlds. Ralok had survived countless battles. He had clashed with fleets of steel, crushed ships with his claws, and breathed streams of burning plasma that melted through armored hulls. For centuries, his name had been whispered in fear by soldiers who knew that if a dragon entered the battlefield, death would soon follow. Yet now, with the war finished, the dragon drifted, exhausted and wounded. His strength was still there, but his spirit felt heavy, almost hollow. On his long neck, between two ridges of dark scales, was a small wound. To Ralok it seemed nothing more than a spot, a minor puncture that would heal with time. Dragons were known for their ability to survive great damage, and he thought little of it. What was one mark compared to the storms of fire he had endured? The scar burned faintly now and then, but Ralok dismissed it as a small reminder of battle. It was not long before human patrol ships found him. The humans, once his enemies, were now the only organized force moving through the sector of space. Their fleets were not seeking battle anymore but were instead searching for survivors, wreckage, and dangers left behind after the long conflict. When their scanners detected the dragon's vast body drifting among the broken remains of a destroyed station, they prepared for defense. The first reaction was fear. Many of the crew had heard stories of Ralok and his kind. Some wanted to fire immediately, to finish what the war had started, but their captain reminded them that the war was over. The treaty demanded that survivors of all species be given aid. With hesitation, the patrol ship approached. They sent out signals, ready to retreat if the dragon showed aggression. Ralok opened one golden eye as the ship drew near. His body ached, but his pride would not allow him to show weakness. He could have destroyed the patrol with a single strike if he wished, but something inside him had grown tired of endless battles. He allowed the humans to tow him, massive chains of light pulling his body toward their station. When they reached the human medical outpost, crowds gathered to see the creature. Many had never stood so close to a living war dragon before. Some hid behind barriers, others watched with wide eyes filled with awe. To them, Ralok was a legend made real, both a nightmare from the past and a wonder of nature. Inside the reinforced medical bay, teams of experts arrived. They brought machines to scan the dragon's body, hoping to understand the extent of his injuries. Yet no one dared come too close. Even weakened, Ralok's presence was overwhelming. His scales shimmered like stone polished by centuries of fire, and his breath carried faint heat that filled the room. It was then that a young human medic named Myra stepped forward. She was not a warrior, nor a scientist of high rank. She was simply a healer, trained to care for all who needed it. Myra's eyes did not hold fear, only quiet determination. She had seen soldiers broken and torn by war, had placed her hands on wounds that seemed impossible to mend. To her, the dragon before her was not a monster, but another patient. Myra walked closer, her step slow but steady. Ralok lowered his head, one great golden eye staring at her. For a long moment, silence filled the bay. The other humans held their breath, waiting for the dragon to lash out. But Ralok did not move. He only studied the small figure standing before him. She looked fragile, her skin soft, her form slight compared to his massive body. Yet there was something in her gaze that reminded him of warriors he had faced. It was not fear, but calm strength. You carry many wounds, Myra said softly, as if speaking to a friend. Some are large, some are small, but each must be treated. Even the smallest mark can carry danger. Rollo's deep voice rumbled, shaking the air. This is nothing. A scar. It will fade, as they all do. Her eyes moved to the puncture on his neck. The wound was narrow, almost hidden beneath overlapping scales. Yet her trained sight noticed the faint discoloration, the slight tremor that pulsed around it. She frowned. Scars do not pulse. This is not as simple as you think. The dragon released a low growl, not of anger but of pride. For centuries, he had stood unshaken against enemies. To admit weakness now felt like betrayal of all he had endured. Yet the human's words struck something within him. He had ignored the wound for too long, perhaps out of stubbornness, perhaps out of fear of appearing less than what he was. The other medics whispered among themselves, unsure if Myra should be allowed to continue. Approaching a war dragon so closely was dangerous. But Rollo remained still, his gaze locked on her. Somewhere deep inside, he wanted to know what she would find. Myra placed a scanner gently near the wound, her hands steady despite the size of the creature before her. The device hummed, sending waves of light across the scales. Numbers appeared on her screen, and her eyes widened. Beneath the surface, something unnatural was lodged deep inside the flesh. It gave off a faint energy signal, unlike any biological trace she had studied before. She looked up at the dragon. This is not just a scar. Something is buried within you. If left alone, it could grow, or spread. You need help. Rollo's chest rose with a slow, heavy breath. His pride told him to laugh at her words, to dismiss them. But another part of him, the part that had seen countless battles and survived through instinct, whispered that she was right. The puncture burned faintly again, and he realized for the first time that it had been slowly worsening. The war dragon who had once believed himself untouchable now faced a truth he could not deny. The scar of victory was no scar at all. It was something else, something hidden, waiting to be uncovered. The medical outpost was quiet that night. Most of the soldiers and workers had already returned to their quarters, leaving only a few guards patrolling the wide halls. The reinforced chamber that held the dragon was still filled with the sound of faint machines, their lights blinking as they scanned the creature's body. The great war dragon, Rollo, rested on the platform, his wings folded tightly, his eyes closed but not in true sleep. Dragons did not sleep easily when surrounded by humans. Myra entered with a small case in her hand. She was alone this time, for most of the other medics were too uneasy to stand near the beast for long. She had asked permission to continue her work without disturbance, and though her request was unusual, the captain allowed it. There was something about her calm manner that made even the nervous soldiers believe she could handle the task. Rollo's golden eye opened as soon as she stepped inside. His gaze followed her as she walked closer, her boots making a soft echo across the metal floor. He lifted his head slightly, the chain of light that bound him humming as it adjusted to his movement. You return, his voice rumbled, deep and heavy, filling the chamber. I said I would, Myra replied, placing her case on a nearby table. You still carry wounds that should not be ignored. The dragon let out a slow breath, the air warm as it swept across the room. I told you before, I am not so fragile. My kind does not fear small marks. Myra did not argue. Instead, she prepared her instruments. She worked with steady hands, setting out scanners, medical tools, and a small monitor that displayed readings. Only after everything was ready did she approach the dragon's neck again. Her eyes focused on the narrow puncture between the scales. Rollo tilted his head, allowing her closer. His pride still resisted, but some part of him was curious. Few dared approach him at all, and yet this human woman moved without fear. She placed the scanner against the wound. A faint hum filled the air as lines of light passed over the scales. The monitor flickered with shapes and signals. Myra leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she read the results. "This is deeper than it looks," she said quietly. "The tissue around it is strained, and there is something inside, something not natural." Rollo gave a low growl, more out of irritation than anger. "Explain." She turned the monitor so he could see. The screen showed a shape beneath the surface of his flesh, thin and sharp, like a shard of crystal buried inside. It pulsed faintly with energy, giving off signals that no normal wound would create. "You thought this was a scar," Myra explained. "But it is not. Something was left inside you. Perhaps it was planted during battle, perhaps by a weapon or an enemy you did not notice. It is alive in its own way, giving off energy. If it grows, it could spread through your body." Rollo's eyes narrowed. He remembered the last great battle he had fought, the one near the ruined station where fleets of humans and dragons had torn each other apart. He remembered a flash of strange light, a burning pain in his neck, and then nothing more. He had dismissed it as another wound in the chaos. Now, listening to Myra, he realized that moment may have been far more dangerous than he had believed. The dragon shifted, his claws scraping lightly against the platform. "If what you say is true, why do I still live? Why has it not destroyed me already?" Myra studied the readings again. "Perhaps it was not meant to destroy you quickly. Perhaps it was meant to stay hidden until the right time. I cannot be sure yet. But I know this is not safe." Rollo let out a deep rumble. His pride urged him to dismiss her words, to deny the thought that anything could bring down a creature like him. Yet he felt the faint burn in the wound again, sharper now that he allowed himself to notice it. He hated to admit it, but the human might be right. Myra set down the scanner and looked up at him. Her voice was calm, but firm. "I want to study this further. I want to help remove it before it does more harm. But you must allow me to work. If you resist, I cannot." The dragon's great eye studied her carefully. He saw no fear in her, no trembling of hands, no false bravado. She spoke as one who had seen pain and suffering before, and yet still chose to stand against it. He respected that, even if he would not say it aloud. "You are bold for one so small," Rollo said finally. "Do you know how easily I could end you where you stand?" Myra did not flinch. "Yes. But if you wanted me gone, you would have done it already. You are still here because some part of you knows you need help." For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. The guards outside the reinforced glass held their breath, unsure if the dragon would strike. But then Rollo lowered his head again, a gesture both of weariness and reluctant acceptance. "Very well," he said slowly. "Do what you must. But know this, human. If you are wrong, if this is a trick, I will not be so merciful." Myra gave a small nod. "Then let us hope I am right." She began her deeper scans, using finer instruments to map the strange shard beneath his scales. The more she studied it, the more she realized how unusual it was. The crystal seemed to pulse like a heart, almost as if it were alive. Its energy was faint but steady, like a whisper traveling through hidden channels. She wondered if it was some form of alien technology designed to take control of the dragon's body. As she worked, Rollo closed his eyes again, but not in sleep. His mind traveled back through memories of war. He had fought humans with fury, burning their ships and scattering their armies. Yet here was one of them, working to save him. It was strange, unsettling, yet oddly comforting. He wondered how many humans had shown such courage during the battles, standing unshaken before death. Perhaps they were stronger than he had believed. After hours of careful study, Myra finally stepped back. Her face showed concern. "This will not be easy," she admitted. "It is buried deep, and its hold is strong. I will need time and more equipment. But I believe I can help you." Rollo opened his eyes, the golden glow reflecting the lights of the machines. "You believe," he repeated slowly. "We shall see if your belief is enough." Myra gathered her tools and turned to leave the chamber. She stopped at the door and looked back at the dragon. "Rest while you can. The real battle may not be behind you, but inside you." The dragon's gaze followed her as she left. For the first time in centuries, he felt uncertainty. The scar he had dismissed was no scar at all, but something hidden, waiting to strike. And now, his fate rested in the hands of a human medic. The days passed slowly inside the human outpost. Outside, the stars shone cold and silent, a reminder that the war had ended but the galaxy still carried its wounds. Inside the reinforced chamber, the dragon Rollo remained under close watch. Guards still stood nearby, though none dared enter without permission. Only Myra came and went freely, carrying her instruments and her calm voice into the giant room where scales glimmered like dark stone under the lights. Rollo had grown used to her presence. He still carried pride in his heart, still thought of himself as a warrior who needed no aid, yet he allowed Myra to work. The strange wound on his neck had begun to trouble him more than before. What once seemed like a simple scar now pulsed with a faint burn that spread in waves through his body. He hated the thought, but he could no longer deny it. Something unnatural lived beneath his scales. On this day, Myra brought new equipment. She rolled in a tall machine with arms that moved like the limbs of an insect. Cables ran from it into a portable console, and faint blue light glowed at its tips. Rollo watched with narrowed eyes as the machine was positioned beside him. "What trick is this?" he asked, his deep voice filling the chamber. "No trick," Myra answered. "This device allows me to look deeper inside the wound without cutting. It will show me what hides beneath your scales, what lies within your flesh. If we are to remove it, I must first understand it." Rollo grumbled but lowered his neck toward her. "Do what you must. But if your device harms me, I will not forgive." Myra only gave a small nod and began her work. She guided the machine's arms, placing the glowing tips gently against the puncture wound. Blue light spread across the dragon's dark scales, seeping between the ridges. The console hummed, and images appeared on its screen. At first they were blurred shapes, but slowly they sharpened. Myra leaned forward, her eyes focused. She saw it clearly now. Lodged deep within Rollo's neck was not simple debris but a crystalline structure. It looked like a shard of glass, sharp and narrow, but its surface pulsed with faint lines of energy. It was not dead matter. It was alive in its own way, a fragment that seemed to grow like a seed planted in soil. Her breath caught. "It is not a scar at all," she whispered. "It is something placed inside you." Rollo stirred, his eye watching her. "Show me." She turned the console so the dragon could see. The image revealed the shard glowing faintly within his flesh. It pulsed with each beat of his heart, as if feeding from his body. Thin tendrils stretched outward from it, small threads creeping slowly into the surrounding tissue. Rollock's chest rumbled with a growl that shook the floor. What trickery is this? Who would dare place such a thing inside me? Myra steadied her voice, though she felt the weight of his anger. It is no trick. This is real. I believe it was placed during battle. Perhaps a weapon, perhaps something hidden in the chaos. Whatever it is trying to bind itself to you. If left alone, it may take control of your body, maybe even your mind. The dragon's wings twitched against the platform, his pride battling with a new feeling he rarely knew: fear. He remembered the moment in battle when a strange flash struck him, the sudden pain that had followed. He had dismissed it, as he always did with wounds. Now he realized it had been more than a weapon's sting. It had been the planting of the seed. What happens if it grows? He asked. Myra studied the tendrils on the screen. If it grows far enough, it may reach your nerves. It could spread through your body and override your control. You may not remain yourself. Whoever created the seed might have meant to turn you into a weapon bound to their will. Rollock's eyes burned with anger. To think that someone sought to chain him, to use his strength as a puppet, was more insulting than any wound he had ever taken. His roar shook the chamber, and the guards outside flinched in fear. But Myra did not move. She stood firm before the dragon, letting the roar pass like thunder. When the sound faded, she spoke with calm resolve. This is why you must allow me to treat it. Pride will not stop it. Only action will. The dragon lowered his head until his golden eye was close to her. You speak boldly, human. Too boldly for one so small. Why do you not fear me? Myra met his gaze without trembling. Because I know pain when I see it. And I know strength too. You may think humans weak, but we endure wounds that should have killed us. We rise again when we are broken. That is why I believe I can help you. Not because I am stronger, but because I do not give up. Rollock studied her in silence. He had fought thousands of humans across battlefields, yet none had stood before him as this one did, with calm eyes and steady words. Perhaps this was why her kind had survived a war against creatures far stronger. He turned his gaze back to the screen, the glowing shard pulsing with unnatural light. If you remove it, will I survive? Myra hesitated. I cannot promise. The shard is tied closely to your body. If I move too quickly, it could spread its energy or cause harm. But if we leave it, the danger will grow with time. Waiting will only make it worse. The dragon let out a long breath, smoke curling faintly from his nostrils. His pride resisted the thought of relying on a human to save him, but his instincts told him she was right. The seed was no scar. It was a threat waiting to strike. Then you will try, Rollock said at last. You will cut the seed from me before it binds my soul. Myra gave a firm nod. I will. But you must trust me. Even a small movement at the wrong moment could undo everything. If you thrash, if you resist, I cannot succeed. The dragon's great head lifted again, and his wings folded tighter. Trust is not given easily. Yet I will give it now. Do not fail me, human. Myra began preparing her tools for a future attempt. She knew it would take planning, skill, and steady hands to remove the seed. For now, she closed the scans and stored the images, but her mind was already turning with thoughts of the procedure. Rollock settled back onto the platform, his eyes closing once more. For the first time in centuries, he felt that his fate did not lie in his claws or his fire. It lay in the hands of a human medic, one who dared to stand before a dragon without fear. The scar of victory had revealed its true nature. It was not a mark of pride but a hidden prison waiting to grow. And the discovery of the seed was only the beginning of a struggle neither dragon nor human could yet imagine. The discovery of the crystal seed inside Ralok changed everything. The dragon, once proud and unshaken, could no longer ignore the truth. His body carried an enemy that sought to bind him from within. Yet even knowing this, his pride weighed heavily on him. To depend on a human, a species he once burned and fought without mercy, was not an easy step. The outpost continued its daily routines. Ships arrived and departed, carrying supplies and wounded soldiers. News of rebuilding spread across the halls. But inside the reinforced chamber, a different struggle unfolded. Ralok remained restless, pacing slowly on the wide platform. The chains of light allowed him to move but prevented escape. His golden eyes burned with thought, as if he fought a silent war inside himself. Myra entered once more, carrying tools and charts. Her steps were calm, though she could sense the tension in the air. The dragon's low growls rumbled through the chamber as he turned toward her. "You return again," Ralok said, his voice deep as thunder. "Why do you not fear what you face?" Myra set her tools on the table and answered simply. "Because you need help. And because I gave my word that I would not abandon you." The dragon's wings twitched, and he lowered his head until his great eye was level with her. "My kind fought your kind for centuries. We burned your ships, crushed your armies, shattered your colonies. How can you stand before me without hatred?" Myra held his gaze without flinching. "Hatred cannot heal wounds. If I carried hatred, I could not do my work. You are not just a weapon of war to me. You are a living being who is in danger. That is enough for me to care." Her words struck Ralok in a place he rarely let others reach. For centuries, he had seen humans as fragile creatures who screamed and fled before dragon fire. He never thought one of them could look at him without fear or hatred. Yet here she stood, unshaken. He turned away with a low growl. "You speak boldly, but bold words do not remove the seed. If you fail, I will become a puppet, no better than a machine. Perhaps it would be better to end myself now." Myra stepped forward quickly, her voice firm. "Do not say that. You survived battles no one else could. You lived through storms of fire and steel. Do not throw that away now. The seed is not stronger than you, not if you let me fight it with you." Ralok looked back at her. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then he spoke softly, almost to himself. "I fear not death. I fear chains. I fear losing myself." Myra nodded slowly. "Then trust me. I cannot promise this will be easy. I cannot promise it will be painless. But I can promise I will do everything I can to keep you free." The dragon studied her face. She was so small, so fragile compared to him, yet her voice carried the weight of unshaken will. Finally, he gave a slow nod. "Very well. You will try. But know this, human. If you betray me, I will end you before I fall." Myra did not look away. "Then I will not betray you." She began her preparations, setting out new instruments designed to map the seed more closely. The console displayed lines and patterns as she traced the tendrils spreading from the crystal. She explained as she worked, speaking not just to herself but to the dragon as well. "These threads reach toward your nerves. They are slow but steady. If they reach far enough, they could take control of your movements. They could even influence your thoughts. That is why we must remove it soon." Ralok listened in silence, though his claws scraped lightly against the floor. The thought of being controlled filled him with fury. His pride burned, demanding that he tear the thing out himself, but his reason told him that only Myra had the knowledge to succeed. When she finished her scans, Myra stepped back. I will need to perform the extraction soon. But I cannot do it alone. You must remain still. If you thrash or fight, the shard could spread faster, or break apart inside you. Do you understand? The dragon's voice rumbled low. You ask me to surrender my body to your hands. You ask me to trust a human with my very soul. Yes, Myra said simply. Rollo closed his eyes for a long moment. Memories of battle filled his mind, memories of fire, steel, and endless screams. He remembered the humans who had fought to their last breath, refusing to flee even when victory was impossible. He remembered their spirit, their strange strength that had carried them through the war. Perhaps this woman carried the same spirit. When he opened his eyes again, they burned with new light. Then I will trust you. But only because I would rather die free than live as a slave to that seed. Myra gave a small nod. That is enough. From that moment, an unspoken bond formed between them. Rollo still carried pride, still held suspicion, but he no longer dismissed her. He listened as she explained the steps of the procedure. He watched as she prepared the tools that would cut into his scales. And though fear lingered, he allowed himself to hope. That night, as the outpost grew quiet, Rollo remained awake, his golden eyes glowing faintly in the dark chamber. He thought of what lay ahead. For the first time in centuries, his fate did not rest in his own strength, but in the hands of another. The thought unsettled him, yet it also brought something he had not felt in a long time: trust, reluctant but real. Myra, too, lay awake in her quarters, staring at the ceiling. She thought of the task before her. She had treated countless wounds, but never had she faced something so alien, so dangerous. Failure would mean the loss of not just a patient but a creature of immense power. Yet she did not allow fear to take root. She remembered the way the dragon had looked at her, the way his voice had trembled with anger and fear. He needed her, and she would not let him fall. Both human and dragon drifted into uneasy rest, their minds heavy with the battle yet to come. The war outside had ended, but a new war had begun, a war fought not with fire and steel but with trust and determination. The day of the procedure arrived. The medical outpost prepared quietly, though word of what was about to happen spread quickly through the halls. Many of the crew whispered that Myra was either brave or foolish to attempt such a task. Some believed the dragon would tear her apart if things went wrong. Others prayed she would succeed, for if the shard truly controlled the beast, the danger to all would be unimaginable. Inside the reinforced chamber, Rollo lay upon the platform, his massive body still but tense. The chains of light that surrounded him glowed brighter than usual, ready to restrain him if his strength broke free. His golden eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling, but his mind was far away. He thought of the seed pulsing inside his neck, feeding off his body like a parasite. He thought of how close he had come to dismissing it as nothing. Now he knew the truth. His greatest battle was not against fleets of humans but against the invader buried beneath his scales. Myra entered the chamber dressed in sterile gear, carrying a case filled with carefully prepared tools. Her steps were slow and steady, though her heart beat fast in her chest. She had spent nights studying the shard, planning every step, calculating every movement of her hands. She knew that one mistake could mean disaster. But she also knew that hesitation could cost more. She stopped beside the dragon's head and looked up at him. "Are you ready?" Rollo's voice rumbled low. "I am never ready to let another cut into me. But this is the only path. Do what you must. Myra nodded and opened her case. She removed a set of instruments designed to pierce even the hardened scales of a dragon. She placed them carefully on the tray beside her, arranging them in perfect order. Every detail mattered. Then she brought forward the scanner, checking the glow of the shard once more. It pulsed steadily, as if mocking them both. "This will hurt," Myra warned softly. "The shard will resist. It may send shocks through your body. You must stay still, no matter what you feel. If you move, I cannot save you." Rollo closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. "A dragon does not flinch from pain. Begin." Myra drew a deep breath and placed the first tool against the scales near the wound. With slow precision, she pressed, parting the overlapping plates of armor that guarded his flesh. The dragon's body shuddered faintly, a low growl rising from his throat, but he remained still. Beneath the open scales, the faint glow of the shard pulsed, brighter now as if aware of the intrusion. When Myra inserted the probe to reach the crystal, the shard reacted violently. A sudden surge of energy ran through Rollo's body, making his massive frame tense. His claws scraped against the metal floor, sparks flying. His wings snapped against the restraints, and a roar thundered through the chamber. The guards outside nearly rushed in, but Myra raised her voice over the roar. "Hold still. Do not fight me. The shard is fighting back. You must resist it." Rollo's golden eyes blazed with fury. His instincts screamed at him to thrash, to unleash his fire, to tear apart the chains and everything around him. Visions of battles filled his mind, memories of flames and blood. He felt as though he was back in the middle of war, trapped in chaos with enemies all around him. The shard twisted his thoughts, pulling at his nerves, feeding him rage. But Myra's voice cut through the storm. "You are not in battle. You are here. Focus on me. Do not let it control you." Her calm words reached him, anchoring him in the present. With great effort, he forced his body to stillness again, though his muscles trembled from the strain. Smoke curled from his nostrils, and his eyes locked on Myra, using her as a point of focus. Myra worked quickly, guiding the probe around the shard. Her screen displayed the thin tendrils stretching outward, attaching themselves to the dragon's flesh. She began severing them one by one with delicate precision. Each time a tendril was cut, the shard sent another violent pulse through Rollo's body. His roars shook the chamber, yet he did not move. His pride and his willpower held him in place. The battle was not only physical but also within his mind. The shard pushed against his thoughts, whispering false commands, trying to drown him in anger. It showed him images of fire, told him to burn the medic standing before him, told him she was the enemy. Rollo's pride nearly gave in, his instincts screaming for destruction. But again he heard Myra's voice, steady and strong. "You are more than your rage. Do not let it own you. Hold on." Those words struck him deeply. No one had ever spoken to him that way. He had always been seen as rage and fire, a force of destruction. Yet this human saw something else. He clung to her voice like a lifeline, pushing back against the shard's influence. Hours seemed to pass in what felt like minutes. Myra's hands moved with care, sweat forming on her brow, but she never faltered. Slowly, the tendrils grew fewer. Slowly, the shard lost its grip. Finally, Myra reached the core. The crystal shard pulsed brightly, almost as if it knew it was about to be defeated. She positioned her tools and spoke firmly. "This is the last part. When I pull it free, the pain will be worse than before. You must not move. Ralok drew in a deep breath, his chest rising like a mountain. Do it. With a swift motion, Myra pulled the shard free. The crystal screamed in its own strange way, sending one final surge of energy through the dragon's body. Ralok roared louder than ever before, his voice shaking the entire outpost. The guards outside fell to their knees, covering their ears. The lights flickered as if the station itself felt the power of the sound. But then, silence. The shard, once glowing and alive, lay in Myra's hands, no larger than a dagger yet filled with unnatural energy. Slowly, its light began to fade. Ralok collapsed against the platform, his great body heaving with exhaustion. For a long moment, he did not move. The chamber smelled of smoke and ozone, as if the battle had scorched the air itself. Myra placed the shard carefully into a sealed container, her hands trembling from both effort and relief. She turned back to the dragon. His golden eyes opened slowly, and for the first time they did not burn with pride or fury. Instead, they held something else. Gratitude. You fought well, Myra said softly. Ralok's voice was weak but steady. Not alone. You kept me from falling. The struggle within had been won, but Myra knew this was only the beginning. The shard was gone, yet questions remained. Who had planted it? Why had it been hidden in such a way? And what did its presence mean for the galaxy still healing from war? For now, though, both dragon and human shared the silence of victory. They had faced the storm together, and together they had endured. The chamber was quiet now, except for the faint hum of machinery that monitored Ralok's vital signs. His great body rested on the platform, wings folded, claws pressing lightly against the metal. Sweat glistened on Myra's brow as she held the crystal shard in her hands, examining its strange structure. Its surface pulsed faintly even after removal, sending ripples of energy through the air. She knew this was no ordinary object. Ralok's golden eyes watched her carefully. He had endured centuries of war, faced fleets of starships, and survived battles that left entire planets scarred. Yet even he felt tension as Myra studied the shard. The strange pulsing inside it seemed to reach beyond his body, beyond the chamber, as if it were a small beacon calling to something unseen. What is it? Ralok asked, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber. Myra looked up, her hands steady despite the shard's energy. It is more than just a weapon. This shard was designed not only to control you but to signal its creators. I believe it was part of a larger plan, one meant to track or awaken forces far away. If I had not removed it, you might have become their agent without even knowing. Ralok's claws dug lightly into the platform as he considered her words. So this was never just a scar. It was a trap. Yes, Myra said. And it was very clever. Hidden, small, and designed to survive your natural defenses. It was meant to bind you slowly, quietly, until you were ready to be used. You could have been turned into a weapon against your own allies. The dragon lowered his head, the weight of centuries pressing upon him. His pride had always been unshakable, his body nearly indestructible. Yet here, for the first time, he realized how fragile his freedom had been. The shard had been inside him for months, maybe years, unnoticed because of his own arrogance. He had dismissed it as a simple scar. Myra's voice drew his attention back. It is safe now. The shard cannot control you anymore. But there is more to learn. Its energy pulses faintly. I believe it sent signals when it was inside you. I will study it to understand who planted it and why. Ralok's golden eyes narrowed. Signals to whom? What do they want? Myra held the shard closer to the console and began scanning it. Lights flashed on the screen, revealing patterns that were complex but structured. The shard was made by a species far away, one that likely intended to use dragons as weapons. It contains encoded instructions and a signal that could reach vast distances. Whoever created this may still be watching, waiting for the right moment. Ralok's tail lashed against the platform, shaking it. Then this war is not over. Even now, danger lies beyond the stars. Myra nodded. Perhaps. But you are free from this shard. You are no longer bound. And now we can prepare for whatever comes next. You survived what was inside you. That shows something important about your kind, and about humans as well. Ralok tilted his massive head. Explain. What do you mean? The shard was designed to control you, Myra said, her voice calm but firm. Yet it failed. You resisted it? Your body, your mind, your will, none of it gave in completely. That strength, combined with careful planning and determination, allowed me to remove it. Alone, neither you nor I could have succeeded. Together, we did. The dragon considered her words. For centuries, he had believed that only his own strength mattered, that no one could help or change the outcome of a battle unless he allowed it. Now he realized that strength was not only in claws or fire but also in the courage and skill of another being willing to stand beside him. Humans are different than I thought, he admitted slowly. I fought many, destroyed many, yet none could teach me this lesson. Myra smiled faintly, still scanning the shard. Strength is not always measured by power. It is also measured by courage, by patience, by willingness to act when others cannot. That is why you survived, and why the shard failed. As the scan continued, the shard's energy began to dissipate. The pulsing faded, the light dimmed, and at last it lay inert in Myra's hands. She sealed it carefully in a container designed to hold alien artifacts. Its threat was neutralized, but the questions it raised remained. Ralok lowered his head toward the floor, his breath slow and steady. I underestimated the danger. I dismissed the mark on my neck. I allowed arrogance to blind me. You are not the only one who can learn from mistakes, Myra said gently. Even the strongest creatures need guidance sometimes. You survived because you listened and acted when it mattered. That is not weakness. It is wisdom. The dragon lifted his head, his golden eyes meeting hers. Then I owe my freedom to you. You saved me, human. And you saved me too, Myra replied. Not from the shard, but from fear. From believing that I could not succeed. You trusted me enough to stay still, to endure. Without your courage, this would have failed. Ralok exhaled slowly, smoke curling from his nostrils. His body, still enormous and powerful, seemed smaller in the quiet of the chamber. Not smaller in strength, but smaller in pride that had once isolated him from understanding. He had faced death and destruction countless times, yet he had never faced such a moment of revelation. The shard had shown him a truth he could not ignore. Strength was not measured only by how much fire one could wield, or how many enemies one could crush. Strength also meant survival through cooperation, survival through trust, survival through recognizing courage in others. Myra packed up her instruments and placed them aside. I will study this shard further. Perhaps we will learn who made it, and why. But for now, you are safe. The danger inside you is gone. Ralok stretched his wings slightly, the movement controlled and careful. Safe, yes, but alert. I am still a warrior. I will not be caught unaware again. I will watch the stars, and I will ensure that no one else can threaten me or others in this way. Then we will be ready together, Myra said, her voice steady. You may be a dragon of war, but even dragons need allies. And perhaps, even humans need dragons. For the first time in centuries, the dragon nodded in respect to a human. It was a small gesture, but monumental in its meaning. Two beings, once enemies in a galaxy torn by conflict, now stood as allies. Their bond was forged in trust, courage, and the shared struggle to survive a danger unlike any other. Outside, the stars shone quietly, but inside the chamber, a new understanding had taken root. The shard was gone, but its lesson remained. Strength, trust, and determination could overcome even the most hidden threats. And together, human and dragon would face the galaxy, ready for whatever came next. The outpost was quiet in the early hours of the morning. The stars outside shone cold and clear, distant lights scattered across the darkness of space. Inside, the reinforced chamber had changed. Where once a great danger had rested, now Ralok moved freely, his massive body stretching on the platform, wings unfurled carefully. The dragon's golden eyes glimmered with a mix of pride, relief, and something new curiosity. Myra stood nearby, checking her instruments one last time. The crystal shard had been secured, its energy neutralized, and now lay in a container designed for study. Its pulsing light was gone, but its lessons remained vivid. She looked at the dragon with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the days of fear and uncertainty had passed, at least for now. You are awake early, Ralok said, his deep voice filling the chamber. I wanted to see that you are comfortable, Myra replied. You need to rest, but I also wanted to make sure the last scan shows everything is stable. The dragon lowered his head, studying her closely. I feel lighter. Not only in body, but in mind. I expected pain and anger after the shard, but instead I feel clarity. That is good, Myra said. You endured a great struggle, and now you can begin to heal. Not just the wound, but the experience itself. You survived because you stayed calm, and because you trusted me. Ralok's tail shifted, brushing against the platform. Trust is not easily given, he said slowly. I have learned that now. You are different from the humans I fought before. Strong, not in fire or claws, but in patience and determination. Myra smiled. And you are different from the dragons I heard stories of. Strong, yes, but also willing to adapt. That is why we succeeded together. A soft hum began from the chamber's walls as the ship systems ran checks. Supplies had arrived overnight, and the humans outside had been busy preparing for the next stage. Yet neither Ralok nor Myra felt rushed. The quiet moment between them was rare, a pause in the long chain of battles, threats, and survival. The dragon stretched his wings fully, careful not to damage the platform or machinery. I have fought countless enemies. I have faced death many times. Yet this battle, this struggle inside me, it taught me something I had not learned before. Myra stepped closer, resting a hand lightly on a claw. What did it teach you? Ralok's golden eyes met hers. That even the strongest cannot face every danger alone. That sometimes, the courage of another is more powerful than 100 armies. That trust can be more dangerous and more vital than any weapon. Myra nodded. That is a lesson worth remembering. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Outside, the hum of machinery and distant ship engines was the only sound. Then Ralok shifted, his massive form leaning slightly closer to Myra. "What now?" he asked. "The shard is gone. Its danger is neutralized. But I feel something beyond that. A signal I cannot yet sense fully, as if others wait, watching the galaxy. Should we remain here, or act?" Myra considered him carefully. "The galaxy is vast, and dangers are never truly gone. We cannot ignore what remains. But first, you must recover. You must regain strength. Only then can we face what comes." Rolloak lowered his wings, his massive head tilting thoughtfully. "Very well. Recovery is wise. But I will not forget what I have learned. Humans are not weak, and I am not invincible. Together, we are stronger than any threat." Myra smiled, feeling the weight of the past days lift slightly. "Exactly. Together." Preparations for departure began. The chains of light that had held the dragon were deactivated, leaving him free to move. Guards and engineers watched respectfully as he rose, his enormous wings spreading to fill the chamber. The platform trembled beneath his weight, yet he moved with care, mindful of the humans around him. "I will go outside," Rolloak said. "I need to feel the stars again, the wind of space, the emptiness that reminds me of my own strength." Myra nodded. "Then we will go together. I can guide you, and we can scan for any remaining signals from the shard or its creators." Rolloak tilted his head in approval. "I will trust you." Not easily, but fully. Together, they moved to the docking bay. The dragon's size required careful navigation, yet he followed Myra's instructions closely. Other humans watched in awe, some even bowing slightly as he passed. Rolloak did not breathe fire or roar, he simply moved, aware of his strength but mindful of the fragile beings around him. Once outside the bay, Rolloak stretched his wings fully in the emptiness of space. Stars glittered across the blackness, distant suns shining like jewels scattered across a vast ocean. He inhaled the cold vacuum air through a protective breathing field, his mind clearing, his body feeling whole again. Myra floated beside him, scanning with portable instruments. "The shard signal is gone," she said. "No other immediate threats. But there may be others like it out there. Ones we cannot see yet." Rolloak's golden eyes glowed softly in the starlight. "Then we will find them. Together. No matter how far. No matter how many." Myra nodded. "And when we do, we will face them with everything we have. Strength, courage, and trust." The dragon lifted slightly, hovering in the void, and Myra followed. The two of them, dragon and human, moved through the stars as a new alliance. They were not enemies, and they were not bound by past wars. They were partners, ready to face the galaxy together. For the first time, Rolloak understood the true meaning of his survival. The galaxy was full of danger, yet full of hope. And sometimes, even the strongest warrior needed another being to stand beside them. The shard had tested him, and he had endured. But it had also taught him something far greater, that courage was not always about fire and destruction, and that trust could be a weapon more powerful than claws or teeth. Myra looked at him and smiled. "We are ready," she said softly. Rolloak's eyes gleamed, reflecting the starlight. "Yes. Together, we are ready."